Thank you for taking the time and joining me on this session. My name is Amit Sharma. I'm the founder and CEO of Narvar. We started the company roughly 10 years ago, and before that, I spent a little bit time in the industry in the intersection of retail and logistics. I worked at Apple, Walmart, and Williams Sonoma almost for a decade, and looking at how customer expectations have evolved, and especially logistics plays a significant role in terms of enabling and delivering a seamless customer experience, which leads to customer retention. And that's where Narvar's whole idea was born almost 10 plus years ago. And our mission is really taking that one-time customer or shopper who is interacting with a brand or a retailer, and how do we drive that customer engagement, retain that customer, which will lead to longer term loyalty. And that's what we help brands and businesses from our technology solution. In the last 10 plus years, we worked with 1,000 plus global brands. There are a lot of solutions that we offer to them. We'll talk about that in a second. And these retailers, they have various different business models, online only, multi-channel, across different retail categories, whether it is fashion, apparel, beauty, electronics. There are a lot of things that we see that really have to come together to enable these experiences. If you see our business, we'll talk about our solutions, but few things to highlight in terms of data and intelligence that is driven from our platform. We have over 2 billion shipments that we see annually, and that gives us a lot of intelligence on our network, what happens on a regular basis. We cover different geos, as I mentioned, and that also helps to have complexity that retailers have in their network, how we can offer that solution to them. In terms of the solution itself, if you think about the customer journey, which starts online, the order journey, how do you set the right expectation as customers are having that intent of buying online? How do you talk about various different options, whether they are coming to your store, whether the items are shipped from your store, or you are getting delivered to your home or to your office. From that, you can also look at various ways where customers need to be notified about how do I track my parcel, how do I get notified on those deliveries. And then there's a whole world of what we call post-delivery returns and exchanges. So most of this session is based on returns, but want to talk about various aspects of customer journey that are really critical before even you talk about post-delivery, which is returns and exchanges. The other piece is really important, is having a one place where you can monitor your end-to-end supply chain and logistics. So the monitor product, where you can see all the data in one place, how the customer expectations are set, what's happening in your fulfillment network, what's happening in your delivery phase of journey, and last but not least, what is that visibility that you would like to have on your returns and reverse logistics. All that visibility is part of the monitor product. So if you look at returns, we see 2 or 3 major issues and challenges from the retailer's perspective. In the last few years especially, we have seen a significant increase in the fulfillment or the operational cost. The labor challenges on top of fuel cost and shipping cost is actually contributing to operational increase. Then you have customers calling to the call center asking for refund. Not only they are focusing on sending the item back, but they want to get their money back. So how do you communicate in terms of refund? And if you don't have any timely update, customers are calling the contact center to find out about their refund or their return. The other piece we see as the businesses are looking at returns, they want to have more and more control. How do they actually use the various carriers or couriers to actually enable their returns and reverse logistics. So a lot of time there are challenges in terms of having that control instead of parcels just showing up in your warehouse and not able to manage your labor or your processes within the four walls. Last but not least, not just on the shipping and the outbound side of it, customer expectations have also significantly evolved. And just keeping up with that customer expectation also has become a challenge when you think about returns or reverse logistics. So we'll talk about few of these things and how we help brands and retailers, and then as we discussed earlier, happy to take any questions and have a little bit more interactions with you all towards the end. So Narvar solution we think about is an end-to-end solution, not just a customer experience layer. We'll talk about a couple of examples there. How do you actually use and leverage the data, and how we have partnership in the ecosystem that also helps us building the returns management part of it, which includes the carrier network, consolidation, and other capabilities. So those are three aspects of our end-to-end return solution. Here is an example of customer experience. It's not just what customers are looking for, how do I return that item, but you can actually segment your customer profiles. So in this example of Levi's, if it is a VIP customer, you can actually initiate a refund immediately because there's a loyalty. And if you get the money in customer's hand, we see they come back and shop with you more. And that drives more and more interaction and engagement with the brand and with the consumer. And we see that now that personalization that retailers are offering in the discovery or in the buying process is actually equally important in the post order, especially when it comes to returns and exchanges. And this is where we can drive more interaction and loyalty with your highest spenders of your customer base. Here's another reason returns have become more and more relevant and important. Consumers are looking for choice and convenience, not only in the buying process, but on the returns process as well. So in the returns, for the same retailer, we see one time they want to have a consumer that can drop off and a click and collect point. They can have a QR code, but in other occasions, they want to come and visit your store and return it right there. Or in other instances, they would like someone to come to their home and pick up their item. So giving that choice and the consumer experience is actually really important. And we see that a lot of customers are actually visiting your help section or FAQ sections even before they actually make a purchase, because they want to make sure they have various different options that they can actually utilize or leverage during the returns process. Now switching gears in terms of returns intelligence and returns management. A lot of time we would like to offer more and more capability to consumers, but retailers not having the control. In this example of Urban Outfitters here in Europe, they are balancing the consumer need versus their supply chain needs. So in this place, we can actually help them route the products to the right place and right location. So whether they want the products to be back in their warehouses or they would like to get to their retail stores, depending upon the product and merchandise, you can actually real time for a given return, they can actually bring it to the right place. And giving that control to retailers also gives them the flexibility, plus they can also significantly reduce their cost for all the items that they can keep in a nearby store versus sending all the way back to the given warehouse. The other piece I want to call out is not just the returns. Having that capability for exchanges, especially in the apparel and footwear category, we see anywhere between 25 to 40% of your returns can be converted into exchanges. So having that real-time option for consumer to actually exchange is really powerful. So you're not just losing your sales, but you're retaining your sales. On top of it, what we also see a changing in consumer behavior. Oftentimes, they may not know that you can offer exchanges, but if you can actually mention that and promote exchanges, even on the time of purchase, then they don't buy a size medium and a size large, so that they know actually if the fitting is an issue, they can always come back and exchange. So there are different ways you can actually help your consumer to educate about the various options do you have during purchase and the returns process, so they can reduce the cost as well as offer them options to exchange if there's an issue or a challenge for them for the item that they bought. This is one of the really exciting product that we launched last year with our partnership with Rebound. So it's not just the actual items, but what are the different ways you can actually help your entire end-to-end logistics network. So in this place, how do you consolidate the goods? Rafa, as some of you may know, is a brand that have more biking gears, but they sell apparel as well. So if you have certain parts where you see less number of returns, but with our partnership with Rebound, you can consolidate those goods. You can get economies of scale. At the same time, you give a really on-brand returns experience to the end consumer to really enable that end-to-end solution while reducing your cost by consolidating those shipments. So that has been a significant cost savings and that our brands are able to leverage through our end-to-end solution and a partnership with Rebound. As you can see, this network is really comprehensive. Not only you can get the preferred carrier rates, but a end-to-end logistics network that is enabled through our partnership there. And you can actually leverage that not only here in Europe, but in if you have cross-border shipping to the US, that can be managed throughout the network as well. So that's another area that we see has become more and more important as you think and consider about a full stack return solution. One last place where I want to talk about the actual results before we open up for questions. What we see is that if you add really friction, your consumers, just like all of us, are really looking for a convenient way of returning. But if you can really optimize your returns, you can see significant ways where you can actually drive a benefit to your P&L. Here are some examples. I'll pick one or two of them. Tropic Feel, as you can see, is not just the self-service way of returning it, but a proactive communication on top of it has helped the brand to reduce their expenses in terms of support by 80%. And that's a significant amount of manual labor in their call center actually went away by enabling an end-to-end return solution. The other example I would talk about is, in terms of Orvis, where really talking about not just the returns, but enabling exchanges. So where they can really see the opportunity of driving that incremental sale that they would have lost otherwise is a great example where you have to think about a holistic solution, not just just returns. Last but not least, NPS scores, where it's not just a one-time purchase as I started with, but thinking about how do you drive the repeat purchase by having your customer satisfaction scores or net promoter scores. Improvement of that is directly related to your customer lifetime value. So we see that whether we like it or not, your most loyal customers, the highest spenders, they're also highest returners as well. And in order to retain your most loyal customer, offering an end-to-end most comprehensive solution in terms of returns is really critical to driving that NPS scores, which helps you maintain that loyal customer and that segment of customers who are spending the most with you. So these are the few examples that we have seen where you can really leverage your return solution, which is friendly to your consumers as well as to your P&L. So with that, I'm happy to open it up and answer any question or anything that you may have a comment to share with the audience here. I know we have a microphone here for you to ask a question.
Yeah. So I think. Are you, yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So you spoke about, let's say, a journey over 10 years plus. If you look ahead in, let's say, 5 years' time, what is your vision about returns? Maybe some touching some AI developments. What is the next return 2.0?
Thank you for the question. In terms of returns looking forward, and so far in the industry, we've been looking at returns management. And we all in the logistics field is reacting to returns that are coming our way. What we see in next 2 to 3 years out is returns reduction. That means setting expectations upstream in the purchase process. That's where we believe where you can use the data, language models and learning models to really educate the customers in that upfront journey. Now, a lot of companies have done that from the size and fitting and all those areas, but those are still in very nascent stages. We believe there's a lot more opportunities to educate the customer upstream that can actually reduce the returns rates, and then we can really impact in a meaningful fashion. Second is that also that's a sustainable way. In the ecosystem. There's so much that we see the opportunity where we can really help not only the P&L, but the sustainability. So using the data and AI will be the next phase of returns reduction.
Any other questions? Oh, this is easy.
Hi, Amit.
Hi.
I read an amazing stat in the ASOS results a couple of weeks ago that 6% of their customers are responsible for £100 million worth of their loss. And they only lost, £100 million worth of loss, and their whole business lost 60 million quid in the first half. And I think they attributed that to customers who were buying lots of discounted product, but also much higher returns rate. ASOS are really good at this online thing. They've been doing it for and a business like that who has all of the data available that they have, and they have a digital returns platform, aren't addressing this problem. Is that because they don't have the resources on it? Is that because it's a really hard problem to address? Is that because AI isn't there? Is it because they haven't charged for returns? Do you have any thoughts on why that is, and how a business like ASOS might start to use technology better to address this kind of fundamental problem with that cohort of, they even called them bad customers in their results that contribute this loss?
Thank you, Mike, for the question there. I think in returns, if you look at the behavior there are two things that are happening on returns. One is intentional return, and second is unintentional return. So on the intentional return, where consumers are buying either, especially in apparel or footwear category, different sizes. For the same item, they're buying different sizes. So upfront, 99% one item is coming back. So that's one subcategory of intentional return. The other subcategory of intentional return is almost more like abuse, when that customer is going to use that item for an event or for a TV show or what may be the case, and that item is coming back. So there is the customer behavior that you can see. And by the way, that particular customer is not only doing for ASOS in this example, they are going to do that across multiple brands. So that's on the intentional side of it. And then you have unintentional returns, where that may not be in control of that customer, where item may arrive damaged, or there's really an issue on expectation of that customer. So that's the other area. So what we believe in these things, you can solve 75% of those challenges through data part of it, right? Data and intelligence at the customer level. And that's where I think the opportunity lies. Without going into the specific with ASOS or other retailers, if you see in the industry, retailers have used a lot of different models, especially on the fraud and abuse side of it, on the payment side. When the order placement, all those models have been implemented. we don't know anyone in the industry right now they have done in the post purchase. And that's where when we work with the retailers, we are in that process of really looking at the network level and enabling some of these next generation sophisticated models to really identify in phase 1 some of these behaviors, and then in phase 2 to really address that in a thoughtful fashion. Because there's no easy answer in all of these cases. And last but not least, it gets more challenging if you are a omni-channel retailer, because you have a lot of your customers who are buying in your store, or you're buying online and returning in store. So you have to look at behavior in a much more holistic fashion to really address and start taking action on that fraud or abuse aspect of returns.
Hi. I think crafting of returns. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. I can't hear myself. That's okay. I think that's a very interesting headline. I think there are some. So you mentioned damages briefly. I think for me, when we talk categories besides clothing, there are something interesting about especially damaged goods or end of lifetime products. So what are your thoughts about reselling or refurbishing end of life or damaged products, and how do your system support it?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good question there. It's not only in damages, but there are categories where if the item is open, you can't even put it back on shelf, right? So beauty category is that category, intimate apparel, there are other categories. When the box is open, you can't do it. And this is where our partnership with Rebound comes in the mix. So there are two parts of it we are handling. One is the end of life of the product. Second is, re-commerce or secondary market. So there are three different ways of doing that. The way we think about is, at that point, inventory disposition. Stepping back up, what's the best way of that inventory which is coming back? What's the disposition model, right? You can take it to your store, put it in the sales. You may have your own secondary market, or you re-commerce it, or you can actually end of life put it there. So disposition models are the models, and then you have to find physically a partner who can actually do the quality and inspection, grading that, and then insert into respective channels. So there are different models being applied on that, and that can be managed at scale.
Amit, hi. My name's Tony Shirota, and I'm the Executive Director for the Reverse Logistics Association. And in the 20 years that we've been around, return rates have more than tripled. And it seems like a lot of companies like Narvar and others, you're making it easier and easier for the consumer to return things. So we've increased the return rates because they love shopping because they can return it for free. The cat is out of the bag. You mentioned returns reduction, which I had to do at Philips. We found ways to do it. But you mentioned returns reduction. How soon do you see that happening? Do you have any insight on what can be done? Because this is a tsunami. It's over $1 trillion in the USA alone. It's $500 billion in the European countries. So returns are out of control. Talk about it, some ideas you might have, because we've made it so easy, really easy, and they want that, or else they don't shop online. They move to another click.
Great. Well, thank you for the question. First of all, solutions such as Narvar or others have increased returns rate. That's the first topic I would like to address. Long before Narvar, Amazon and Zalando existed, right? And they actually set the customer behavior. If you look at it, the highest returns rate in Germany, almost 40-60%, compared to Japan, which is like 5 or 6%. Right, so there is a consumer behavior that is set, by other e-commerce players, and that has become the norm. The second part is that we have seen this over and over again. If customers do not understand, and if customers cannot follow your returns process, they're not even coming online and buying, especially if your product is more than 50 to 75 euro. They will not shop online if your returns process is not easy to understand and easy to follow. So that's what it is, right? Now, whether that can be sustainable from the returns reduction and from the penal perspective, that's where the focus is, right? How do you actually meet the consumer behavior and expectations. So I talked about returns reduction. What I did not mention a whole lot about crafting the returns solution. So the one thing you can think about is actually how do you drive your returns policies based on the customer profiles. You can actually look at your loyal customers and actually offer a different returns policies versus people who are shopping with you one time, and you may even charge them for returns. So there are a lot of things can be done in there. In terms of returns reduction, depending on the category, how do you actually really explain to the customers what's happening on the returns process, right? There is no information. Customers are still quite naive. They believe that every return that they are making, 100% of that is actually making back on shelf. Customers, there's not much education there. So that's also a collective responsibility of the logistics partners, retailers, and technology companies such as Narvar to actually educate the customer in this space. Honestly, we see there are good examples in other industry. If you look at grocery industry, right? In last 20, 30, 40 years, we have actually trained a sustainable way of actually buying and groceries, and even bringing your own bags, paper bags, to actually do that. We haven't done as a e-commerce businesses, educated the customers the impact of returns on there. So I think it's a shared responsibility, not only using the data, but the customer education throughout the process, so that this is a collective challenge. It's not just a brand or a logistics problem here.
Hello. Thank you, Amit, for the presentation. And I wanted to follow up on what you were saying before and on Tony's question. I don't know if you can share some examples of how would you further educate the customers in the upper funnel before they purchase. And also if you could also deep dive on the different behaviors that you're seeing. I've been working in e-commerce also for a couple of years now. And I've also noticed these behaviors, different behaviors per country. So I don't know if, knowing that you have this data cross-country, what would you be your takeaways in order to maybe localize e-commerces to reduce returns per region?
Yeah, so the customer behavior is indeed different. And it's also the social norms, like different societies and behaviors are different. In our example, what we see in Japan is completely different in Germany or in Europe from that piece. I think there is also the how do we actually talk about the benefit in terms of when the customers are buying online, but you can tell them that you can offer exchanges. That's the other example. If they don't know, they're buying those 2 or 3 items, not knowing whether the inventory is available or they can actually keep the item. So we see in often cases when you offer and talk about exchanges, customers are actually not buying multiple sizes upfront. They know they can actually exchange it later. That's just one example of doing that. Second is also crafting your restocking fees. And we are seeing more and more that happening in the industry now. Like if you tie that restocking fee or returns fee based on how customers are returning. So if they're bringing to your store, you can make it free. But if you are mailing it back, you can apply some fee, which may also impact your returns rate or benefit your cost model. So there are different ways you can manage that. But I must admit, there's no easy solution that you can say that works in one country or one region that can apply across the board in different countries either.
Okay. Amit, thank you so much. And thanks to the audience for the interactive part of it and asking the questions. Narvar is in the booth around the corner, so to say. So feel free to drop by today or tomorrow. And most importantly, give Amit a big warm applause.
Thank you.